And I'm hoping for the Noel victory there because I've already got him in a couple of Dynasty drafts. So let's go, Jalen.
Well, all right. I think we're fairly covered on that Texans wide receiver battle, but I think one of the ones that we've been kind of waiting on for 2 off seasons now is the Cowboys running back position. This is one that might be uglier than either of the previous two, although the Steelers quarterback position is also an ugly one. However, running backs have inherent fantasy value, and there's certainly some money to be made in this situation between the crapshoot that is Jaydon Blue, Phil Maffa, Miles Sanders, Deuce Vaughn, Javonte Williams. If you bet the right horse, you're going to make good money on this one, I think, because there's so much variety in who people prefer that none of these guys are particularly expensive. And if one of them even gets 55% of the running back volume over the season, that they're going to break positive value. So I'm curious what you guys think and what you guys are most looking forward to watching out of the Cowboys running back situation over the next 2-3 months.
I mean, I can jump in on this one. So for Dynasty relevancy, it's such a weird thing because I think it's relevant for Jaydon Blue. Because Javonte Williams, unless he suddenly finds what we thought we saw him coming out of college in that rookie year with that explosiveness, it just seems like it's kind of kaput for him, right? Like he'll be a volume guy. He'll be like a Jamal Williams, is kind of what it reminds me of a few years ago. And the Cowboys are not going to score touchdowns the way the Detroit Lions did, which is what made Jamal Williams fantasy relevant that year. But will he soak up most of the carries? Yeah, but Jaydon Blue is going to be more explosive. He's going to be more involved, I believe, at least in the passing game. He's the only running back who has a different type of skill set. That's kind of the other thing. Like Maffa and Javonte and Miles Sanders, who's been toast for forever now at this point. You're just talking about a lot of guys who are just going to maybe find 2 yards past the line of scrimmage and fall down. And I'm a big Javonte Williams guy. I never will give up totally on him, but at this point, you can't really expect too much more out of it. So it's interesting from a Jaydon Blue situation. But at the same time, I don't think Jaydon Blue's ever built to be the guy, right? And if he's not going to be the guy, they're going to probably, I know we said this year, they didn't do much to do it, but I got to imagine at some point they're going to address the running back position with a higher volume, caliber, talented running back, and that could be next season, potentially, where Blue might just get stuck kind of in that third down role. Full point PPR leagues, I think he's a guy who could be an RB3, maybe even half point this year, because I think he could be in a position to get a little bit more work if they have to be explosive. So I'm interested from a Jaydon Blue standpoint, but maybe even from the standpoint of, we get to the season, he starts catching fire, maybe I sell him, because I don't it screams a lot of Tyrone Tracy to me. I don't know if he'll even be as good as Tyrone Tracy was last year, but it screams a lot of Tyrone Tracy. Like, I know you're going to get somebody who's going to take away whatever your ceiling and the opportunity role is going to be.
Yeah, it's interesting with the draft capital, how that could potentially work out, right? Like we've seen a bunch with these backs that get drafted late, that there's a decent chance that they just either add someone to the backfield to share it with you or you lose it altogether. But go ahead, Chase.
Well, for all those Javonte Williams fans out there that were kind of raking me over the coals 3 years ago when I wasn't real big on him, and I know he's had injuries since then and all that, but this is it. This is the opportunity for him to show that he can be a full-fledged starting running back in this league still, or ever for that matter. But like you said, he'll have value, or whoever emerges in this backfield will have value simply by being a starting running back. But I do believe that it's going to be much more of a run pass split. I think we're going to see I think that we'll see somebody have to operate as that pure third down running back. Now, whether that's Jaydon Blue, who is the youngster coming into town, or whether that's Miles Sanders, who, yes, I'm not all that excited about, but he at least has shown something in the past that he can kind of do that. So yeah, for the Javonte Williams people, owners out there, you're hoping that this is kind of like a renaissance for him, that he shows that the knee is not going to be a problem, and that, for the most part, 2 years that he didn't have to shoulder the load, that he's actually younger than his 25 years would suggest here. So I'm not crazy about wanting any part of this backfield. This screams like a situation where they still could add somebody. We still do have J.K. Dobbins out there. We still do have Gus Edwards. There are still people out there they could bring in and make this just a complete full-fledged nightmare. So outside of Jaydon Blue, I'm not really wanting a whole heck of a lot in this backfield from a dynasty standpoint.
Chris, we've pooped on Javonte a couple times here. We got to give you your opportunity to talk about your guy here.
Defend your boy.
Well, I mean, look, it's not even about just Javonte to me. This is one of the first actual battles I think we've actually talked about. I don't think there's really a battle going on in Pittsburgh with who shows up to actually play quarterback. I don't think really a battle for a second receiver. I think that's Higgins clearly. I think he's the prototype of what they're looking for, as a second receiver. But in this situation, I think that we're going to look for is what are these guys' roles in the usage, and that does definitely have impact on all these guys. I mean, Phil Maffa could be somebody that has value of the goal line guard. It could be unrosterable. You're going to find out pretty quickly. You're going to also have guys like Javonte Williams, who Chase alluded to, that it might be his last shot, but it's also his first shot of being healthy and being a guy who's been a starter from maybe possibly day one. We've seen, Schottenheimer use other backs situation. You guys remember Bilal Powell? Bilal Powell was actually fantasy relevant for a period of time there because people like Schottenheimer were figuring out how to utilize him in different roles. He wasn't necessarily the guy that was RB1 in the backfield. They used Thomas Jones, they used different guys and mixed guys in. That's kind of what they were known to do. In Seattle, it's a little bit different with more two, and they're the third down back usually as a pass catcher. We saw McIntosh, this guy they drafted out last year before he moved on. So I think when you look at it in totality, for me, it's what are the roles? And what are these guys actually kind of usage? If it's going to be, these guys are all getting kind of chance to eat, then all these guys might be roster books. To everybody's point, there's no long-term answer necessarily in the backfield, but that's also an opportunity for guys. We've seen, previous Cowboys, they'll keep rolling out Rico Dotto. They'll keep rolling out Malik Davis. They'll keep rolling out people because they're familiar with the system. They've been around, and Jerry doesn't move on real easily. I think Jaydon Blue is the easy guy to kind of target all of them because he's going to have value regardless. He's the newest toy in a sense. He got drafted by this coaching staff. They targeted him specifically for a skill set to be able to use out of the backfield as a receiver. He kind of profiles a lot like Tony Pollard in a lot of ways as well. So I think he's going to have a role for this Cowboy team. It's the other guys I think are going to be kind of key. How much value do they have? And, Javonte could be somebody that could want to being an RB3 on your bench or a flex option, but it's still nice to have.
Rico Dowdle was roster filler for several years, but because of how the Cowboys use their running backs, he became fantasy relevant when he finally got the job. That's the hope for anybody out there who's looking at Phil Maffa.
But the point to that is you would have wished you sold Rico Dowdle while you had the chance. And
Exactly.
That's kind of the point I'm making with Jaydon Blue. Like, I might sell him if he doesn't.
I agree completely. If you get bail. Yeah.
More my thing is like you're talking about the camp battle aspect. That down the road, it definitely debate these guys' value. But I think camp battle wise, going into this, that's the I want to see these guys' roles.
Well, and to that point, like yes, you do want to sell him, but that's still dynasty relevant in the sense that hey, that's a second-round pick you can potentially get for nothing right now. Like it's kind of like what I talked about with Tyler Shough when I drafted him in the mock draft episode. It's not about that I think he's going to be a great quarterback. It's that if you give me a quarterback in the third round that I think is going to start, then that almost always ends